The black Mercedes S-Class swerved hard, tires screaming against the wet California highway. Hello viewers, welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Is it New York, Australia, Canada, or South Africa? We really want to know. Inside, John Smith clutched his chest, his face turning purple. The pain shot down his left arm like lightning. His vision blurred. The steering wheel felt slippery in his sweating palms. He was having a heart attack. At 54 years old, John Smith had everything. $3 billion in the bank. A mansion in Beverly Hills. Another one in Malibu. Cars that cost more than most people's houses. But right now, none of that mattered. His heart was giving out, and he was alone on a dark stretch of Pacific Coast Highway, miles from the nearest hospital. The car jerked to the right. John tried to straighten it, but his arms wouldn't obey. The Mercedes crashed through a wooden barrier and rolled down an embankment, metal crunching and glass shattering. It came to rest on its side in a ditch, steam hissing from the engine. John lay there, trapped by his seatbelt, hanging sideways. Blood trickled down his forehead. Each breath felt like knives in his chest. His phone had flown somewhere during the crash. He couldn't reach it, couldn't move. This was it. This was how he would die. Then he heard footsteps. "Mister, you okay in there?" A face appeared at the shattered window. A young black boy, maybe 13 or 14 years old, with worried eyes and rain dripping from his hair. "Help!" John gasped. "Can't breathe." The boy's eyes went wide. "Hold on, I'll get you out." But then the boy stopped. He leaned closer, squinting through the broken glass. His expression changed. The worry disappeared, replaced by something else. Something cold. Wait, the boy said slowly. "I know you." John tried to focus on the kid's face. He'd never seen him before in his life. "You're John Smith," the boy said. It wasn't a question. "You own Smith Development Corporation." "Yes," John wheezed. "Please, help me." The boy stood up straight. He looked down at John with eyes that seemed too old for his face. "My name is Anselm," he said quietly. "Anselm Rodriguez. Does that name mean anything to you?" John's mind raced through the pain. Rodriguez. Rodriguez. He'd dealt with thousands of people over the years, employees, contractors, people he'd sued, people who'd sued him. "No," he gasped. "Please, I'm dying." "My father was Miguel Rodriguez," Anselm said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "He worked construction. 5 years ago, he was building one of your luxury condos in Santa Monica. The scaffolding collapsed. 3 men died. My father was one of them." John's heart hammered against his ribs. He remembered that project, remembered the lawsuits, remembered his lawyers telling him to settle quietly. "The investigation said it was faulty equipment," Anselm continued, "but my mother found emails. Your company knew the scaffolding was defective. You knew it was dangerous, but you used it anyway because replacing it would have delayed the project, would have cost you money. That's not..." John couldn't get the words out. "My mother tried to sue you," Anselm said, "but you had expensive lawyers. They buried her in paperwork, dragged it out for 3 years. She couldn't afford to keep fighting. She had to drop the case. We lost everything. Our house, our car, everything." The rain was falling harder now. Water dripped through the broken window onto John's face. "She got sick last year," Anselm said. "Cancer. She needed treatment, but we had no insurance, no money. She died 6 months ago. I've been in foster care ever since." John stared up at the boy, at Anselm. He wanted to say he was sorry, wanted to say it wasn't his fault, wanted to say something, anything, but the pain in his chest was getting worse. "So, you see, Mr. Smith," Anselm said, "I know exactly who you are, and right now, I'm the only person who knows you're down here, the only person who can save you." He pulled out an old, cracked cell phone from his pocket. held it up so John could see it. "I could call 911 right now," Anselm said, "or I could walk away. Let you die here, alone, just like my father died. Just like my mother died." John's vision was darkening at the edges. "Please," he whispered. Anselm stood there in the rain, phone in hand, staring down at the man who had destroyed his family. Seconds ticked by. Each one felt like an hour. Then Anselm's thumb moved toward the phone screen. But he didn't dial 911. Instead, he climbed down into the ditch. He grabbed the car door and pulled with all his strength. It didn't budge. He tried again, grunting with effort. On the third try, the door creaked open just enough. "I'm going to get you out," Anselm said, "but not because you deserve it." He reached in and unbuckled John's seatbelt. John collapsed forward, and Anselm caught him, struggling under the weight. Slowly, inch by inch, he dragged the billionaire out of the wrecked car. John lay on the wet ground, gasping. Anselm pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "There's been a car accident on PCH near mile marker 42, he said calmly. "A man is having a heart attack. Send an ambulance." He hung up and looked down at John. "They'll be here in 10 minutes, Anselm said. "You'll live, but here's what's going to happen next." John stared up at him, confused. "When you get to the hospital, you're going to tell them I saved your life," Anselm said. "And then you're going to do something for me. Something that will hurt you more than dying ever could." "What?" John managed to croak. Anselm crouched down beside him. "You're going to make this right. All of it. You're going to set up a foundation in my parents' names. You're going to fund it with $50 million. It's going to help families of workers who get hurt or killed on construction sites. It's going to pay for their medical bills, their kids' education, their legal fees when companies try to screw them over." John's eyes widened. "And that's not all," Anselm continued. "You're going to personally apologize to every family from that scaffolding collapse. You're going to admit what you did. You're going to make sure it never happens again at any of your construction sites. You're going to implement the best safety standards in the industry, even if it costs you millions." "I can't," John started. "Yes, you can," Anselm said firmly. "Because if you don't, I'm going to take the evidence my mother collected before she died, and I'm going to give it to every news station in California. I'm going to tell them how you let my father die to save money, how you crushed my mother in court, how I saved your life, and you refused to do the right thing. Your reputation will be destroyed. Your business will be destroyed. Everything you've built will turn to ash." In the distance, sirens wailed. "But if you do what I'm asking," Anselm said, "I'll never tell anyone what really happened. You'll be a hero, the billionaire who had a near-death experience and decided to give back, to make amends. People will love you for it." John stared at this boy who held his entire future in his hands. This child who had every reason to let him die, but chose something worse, chose to make him live with his guilt, chose to make him pay. "Why?" John whispered. "Why save me at all?" Anselm's eyes were hard. "Because my father was a good man. Yeah, he taught me that 2 wrongs don't make a right. And my mother, even after everything you did to her, she never wanted revenge. She just wanted justice. She wanted to make sure no other family went through what we did." He stood up as the ambulance lights appeared in the distance. "So that's what I'm giving her," Anselm said. "Justice. You get to live, Mr. Smith, but you're going to spend the rest of your life making up for what you took from us. That's my revenge, making you into the man you should have been all along." The paramedics arrived and rushed to John's side. They loaded him onto a stretcher, asking Anselm questions. The boy answered calmly, explaining how he'd been walking home when he saw the crash, how he'd pulled Mr. Smith from the wreckage, how he'd called for help. "You saved his life." "Son," one of the paramedics said. "You're a hero." Anselm didn't smile. He just watched as they loaded John into the ambulance. Before they closed the doors, John caught Anselm's eye. The boy's expression was clear. "Remember our deal?" John nodded weakly. 3 weeks later, John Smith stood at a podium in downtown Los Angeles. His chest still hurt from the heart attack. He'd had emergency surgery, 2 stents put in. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. He knew the truth. Luck had nothing to do with it. The press conference room was packed. Reporters, cameras, curious onlookers. John had called this meeting himself, against his lawyer's advice. They'd begged him not to do this, told him he was opening himself up to lawsuits, to criminal charges maybe. But he'd made a promise to a boy in the rain. A boy who could have let him die, but chose something harder instead. 5 years ago, John began, his voice shaking, 3 men died at one of my construction sites in Santa Monica. One of those men was Miguel Rodriguez. He left behind a wife, Maria, and a son, Anselm. The room went quiet. I was told at the time that it was an accident, that the equipment failed. But that wasn't the whole truth. John took a deep breath. My company knew the scaffolding was defective. We knew it was dangerous. But we used it anyway because replacing it would have delayed the project and cost money. I made that decision, and because of my decision, 3 men died. Cameras flashed. Reporters started shouting questions. John held up his hand. Maria Rodriguez tried to hold me accountable. She sued my company, but I used my resources to fight her, to drag out the case until she couldn't afford to continue. I crushed her in court, not because she was wrong, but because I could. Because I had more money and better lawyers. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. Maria Rodriguez died 6 months ago. She never got the justice she deserved. Her son, Anselm, is now in foster care. He lost his father because of my greed. He lost his mother because of my cruelty. And 3 weeks ago, that same boy saved my life. The room erupted. John waited for the noise to die down. I was having a heart attack. My car crashed. I was dying. Anselm found me. He could have walked away. He had every reason to. Instead, he pulled me from the wreckage and called for help. He gave me something I never gave his family. Mercy. John's hands gripped the podium. I can't bring back Miguel Rodriguez. I can't bring back Maria. I can't give Anselm his childhood back. But I can try to make sure no other family suffers the way they did. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Miguel and Maria Rodriguez Foundation. I'm funding it with $50 million. Its mission will be to support families of workers injured or killed on construction sites, to pay for medical care, education, legal representation, to fight for the kind of justice Maria Rodriguez never got. He pulled out a piece of paper. I'm also implementing new safety standards across all Smith Development Corporation projects. Standards that exceed state and federal requirements. Standards that will cost my company millions of dollars. But not a single dollar is worth a human life. I should have known that 5 years ago. I know it now. The questions came fast and furious. John answered them all. Yes, he expected lawsuits. Yes, he might face criminal charges. Yes, this would hurt his business. But none of that matters, he said. What matters is doing the right thing. Finally. After the press conference, John's lawyers were furious. His business partners threatened to leave. His stock price dropped 15% in a single day. John didn't care. He visited Anselm at his foster home the next week. The boy was sitting on a worn couch in a cramped living room doing homework. I did what you asked, John said quietly. Anselm looked up. I saw the press conference. The foundation is set up. The money's been transferred. I've hired people to run it, people who actually care. And I've started reaching out to the other families from the accident, to apologize, to make amends. Anselm nodded slowly. I also talked to my lawyers, John continued. About you. About your situation. What about it? John sat down across from him. You're in foster care. You have no family, no permanent home. I know that, Anselm said. I want to change that, John said. I want to set up a trust fund for you, for your education, for your future. Enough that you'll never have to worry about money. Enough that you can go to any college you want, become anything you want. Anselm's eyes narrowed. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt money, John said. Well, it is. But it's also the right thing to do. Your mother spent her last years fighting for justice. She should have won. This is what she would have gotten if I hadn't been a coward. If I'd done the right thing from the start. Anselm was quiet for a long moment. There's one more thing, John said. I know this is complicated. I know you have every reason to hate me. But you're 14 years old. You shouldn't be in foster care. You should have a home, a family. I had a family, Anselm said quietly. You took them from me. I know. And I can never replace them. I would never try. But John took a deep breath. I'm alone too. I have houses, but no home. I have money, but no one cares if I live or die, except you. You cared enough to save me, even when you shouldn't have. Anselm stared at him. I'm not asking to replace your father, John said. No one could do that, but I'm asking if maybe you'd consider letting me try to be better. To be the kind of person your parents would have wanted in your life. I could be your legal guardian. You could live with me. I could make sure you have everything you need. Not just money. A real home. Someone who's there. Why would you do that? Anselm asked. Because you gave me a second chance at life, John said. And I want to use it to give you one too. A chance at the future your parents wanted for you. Anselm looked down at his homework. Math problems he'd been struggling with. In a foster home where no one had time to help him. Where he was just another kid in the system. If I say yes, Anselm said slowly, it doesn't mean I forgive you. I know. It doesn't mean we're family. I know. It just means I'm letting you try to do the right thing. John nodded. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to try. Anselm was quiet for a long time. Then he said, My mom used to say that people can change, that it's never too late to become who you're supposed to be. I didn't believe her. After everything that happened, I thought people like you will never change. Maybe I won't, John said honestly. Maybe I'll mess this up too. But I want to try. For your parents. For you. For myself. Anselm looked up at him. Okay, he said quietly. You can try. 6 months later, Anselm moved into John's house in Beverly Hills. Not the big mansion. John had sold that. Too many rooms, too much empty space. He'd bought a smaller place. Still nice, but more like a home than a museum. Anselm got his own room, his own bathroom, a desk for homework, bookshelves that John helped him fill. They ate dinner together every night. John learned to cook, badly at first, but he got better. They talked about school, about Anselm's dreams of becoming an engineer like his father had wanted to be. John went to Anselm's parent-teacher conferences, helped with homework, taught him to drive when he turned 15, showed up to his soccer games, even though Anselm wasn't very good, cheered anyway. It wasn't perfect. They fought sometimes. Anselm would get angry, throw John's past in his face. John would get defensive, then apologize. They'd sit in uncomfortable silence, then slowly find their way back to talking. But slowly, something changed. The Miguel and Maria Rodriguez Foundation grew. It helped dozens of families in its first year, hundreds in the second. John visited the families personally, listened to their stories, wrote checks, yes, but also pushed for legislation, for better safety standards, for stronger worker protections. He became known for it. Not as the billionaire who cut corners, but as the man who'd changed, who'd faced his mistakes and tried to fix them. Some people didn't believe it, called it a publicity stunt, said he was just trying to avoid lawsuits. John didn't care what they thought. He cared what Anselm thought. And one night, 2 years after Anselm moved in, the boy came downstairs while John was working on foundation paperwork at the kitchen table. Can't sleep? John asked. Anselm shook his head. He sat down across from John, quiet for a moment. I've been thinking, he said finally, about that night, when I found you in the car. John set down his pen, They'd never really talked about it, not in detail. I wanted to let you die, Anselm said. I stood there with my phone and I wanted to just walk away, to let you feel what my dad felt, what my mom felt. I know, John said quietly. But then I thought about what my mom would say. She'd tell me that revenge doesn't heal anything, that it just makes more pain. And I realized that if I let you die, I'd become like you, like the person you were, someone who chose money and pride over doing the right thing. Anselm looked up at John. So I saved you, but I also wanted to punish you. I wanted to make you suffer by making you live with what you'd done, by forcing you to be better. That was my revenge. John nodded. It worked. But here's the thing, Anselm said. I don't think it's revenge anymore. I think my mom was right. I think people can change. So I think you have changed. John felt something tight in his chest. Not pain this time. Something else. You're not my dad, Anselm continued. You never will be. But you've been here. You've shown up. You've tried. And the foundation, it's helped so many people. People like my family. You've saved lives, John. Real lives. It was the first time Anselm had called him by his first name instead of Mr. Smith. I think my parents would be okay with this, Anselm said. With me being here. With you trying to make things right. I think they'd see that you're not the same person who let my dad die. You're someone different now. John's eyes were wet. I'm trying to be. I know, Anselm said, and I just wanted to say, thank you for giving me a home, for being here, for changing. They sat there in the quiet kitchen. The man who'd lost everything that mattered and the boy who'd lost everything he loved. Two people who'd found something unexpected in each other. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but maybe something better. A second chance. 5 years after that night on Pacific Coast Highway, Anselm graduated high school at the top of his class. John sat in the audience, cheering louder than anyone when Anselm's name was called. Anselm had been accepted to MIT full scholarship, plus the trust fund John had set up. He was going to study engineering, just like his father had dreamed. At the graduation party, Anselm gave a speech. He talked about his parents, about losing them, about the anger he'd carried. But I learned something, he said, looking at John. I learned that the best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's making them better. It's taking something broken and forcing it to heal. Not for them, but for everyone else who might get hurt if it stays broken. He paused. 5 years ago, I saved a man's life, but he saved mine too. He gave me a home when I had none. He showed me that people can change, even when you think they can't. He proved that it's never too late to do the right thing. After the party, as they drove home, Anselm said, I've been thinking about the foundation. What about it? John asked. I want to work there, after college. I want to help run it, to make sure it keeps doing what my mom would have wanted. John smiled. I think that's a perfect idea. And I was thinking, Anselm continued, maybe we could expand it, not just construction workers. All workers who get hurt because companies cut corners, who get crushed by people with more money and better lawyers. We'd need more funding, John said. I know. I was thinking you could donate more. John laughed. How much more? Another 50 million? You're going to bankrupt me, kid. Good, Anselm said, grinning. You've got too much money anyway. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Anselm said, quietly, Hey, John. Yeah? I forgive you. John's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd never asked for forgiveness, never thought he deserved it. You don't have to, he said. I know, Anselm said, but I want to. Not because you've earned it, but because holding on to anger was killing me, just like it killed my mom. I don't want to carry that anymore. He looked out the window at the California sunset. My dad used to say that the strongest thing a person can do is choose kindness when they have every reason to choose hate. I didn't understand that when I was a kid, but I do now. That night on the highway, I chose kindness, and it changed everything. It changed you. It changed me. It changed hundreds of families through the foundation. He turned to look at John. So, yeah, I forgive you. Not because you're perfect now, but because you're trying. And that's enough. John had to pull over because he couldn't see through his tears. They sat on the side of the road, and for the first time since that rainy night 5 years ago, John Smith cried. Not from pain or fear, but from gratitude. Gratitude for a boy who'd had every reason to let him die, but chose something harder. Chose to make him live. Chose to make him better. Chose revenge not through destruction, but through redemption, and in doing so, saved them both.